Hey everyone, this is a review of Beginning String Lesson 4, and this was a very exciting week because we finally learned how to use the bow. And I know a lot of students have been waiting for that, and so we spent some time this week learning the proper way to hold the bow, and we call that using a beautiful bow hold. And one thing that the students learned right off the bat is that having a beautiful bow hold is not easy, and it takes some time, and you really have to have some grit and be patient with yourself as you're learning this. So I don't expect any student to come back next week having it perfect, but I do expect that they're going to spend some time this week practicing the proper bow hold, and then we can keep working on it when they come back for their next lesson. So the first thing we did in practicing our bow hold is we actually used a pencil to help us shape our hand in the correct way. This is recommended in the lesson book, and it's just a lot easier than having a big clunky bow in your hand to really get your fingers in the right spot using the pencil. So it is a slightly different bow hold between violin, viola, and cello bass, and so I'm going to show you they're actually very similar except one step is different. So for everybody, what you're going to do is hold your pencil in your left hand, and you can do this along with me right now, kind of follow along. So your left hand, I'm just holding it to stabilize it. Your right hand is the one that does all the work. And what you're going to do is kind of like you're hanging off a ledge and holding on with your fingers. You're going to do that with the pencil. So you can see how my fingers are curved over the pencil. I'm not holding it. If I let go, it would fall right away. But they're just kind of curved over that pencil, kind of evenly spaced out like this, and it's touching, I'll show you like this, just so you can see around where that second knuckle is, except on my pinky, but I have a short pinky, so it could be different depending on the length of your pinky. So they're just kind of there hanging over, all right? And the next thing you're going to do is take your thumb and you're going to put it up against the pencil, and that's actually going to make it so that you are holding it. You're not gripping it and squeezing. Your thumb is just very lightly going there and keeping it in place. Now it's really important, and I actually can't demonstrate this, but I see probably at least 50% of students do this. They bend their thumb in the other direction. My thumb does not work like that, but a lot of students do, where they bend it in like that. That not only is the incorrect way and is going to lead to some problems down the road with getting a good tone, it also is just not a good thing for your hand to be in that position. It actually could lead to some pain later if you play like that for too long. So really important that your thumb is bent like this. So again, we're holding on kind of like we're hanging off a ledge, and then your thumb goes right here, okay? For cellos and basses, this is basically your bow hold. You might need to give your hand a little tilt to the left because we want to be able to dig into that string, have a little weight coming from our index finger, but this is basically a beautiful cello and bass bow hold. Now I did say for basses, and I have to use my bow for this, that instead of doing it with your thumb like this, you actually can move it down. Just for now, holding a bass bow it's very heavy, and it is a little bit harder to get that beautiful bow hold. So that's one accommodation for basses, but everyone else their hand is going to look just like this if you're a cello. And then violins and violas, you have one more step to make yours a beautiful bow hold, and that is you're going to pop your pinky up on the top of the stick like that. Okay, and again, it's not bending like that, it's nice and curved. So everything is curved and relaxed and not tense. This is a beautiful bow hold, and you can practice this in your classroom, you can practice this at home, you're sitting in the car, on the school bus, really just practicing having so that it doesn't feel awkward, because I know the first few times you do it, it does feel awkward. And same with violins and violas, that you might need to give your hand a little tilt to the left, okay? But this is what we're looking for. This is a beautiful bow hold. The other thing to look out for is to not have your fingers all smushed like this. They should have a little bit of a space between them, okay? And so when I say a beautiful bow hold, this is what we are looking for. And so when you translate that over to the bow itself, you can see that even though there's a lot more going on with the bow, there's still that basic pencil or stick up here, okay? And so when you hold your bow, it's going to have nothing to do with any of this or any of the hair. You're going to pretend like you're holding the pencil and do the exact same thing. And so again, we're just stabilizing our bow with our left hand. And we're going to do that thing where it looks like we're hanging on a ledge, but this time over the bow. And to know where your hand should go, your middle finger is going to touch this this metal piece right here. So I would say middle on the metal. So you're going to hang your hand over, and you see how that middle finger is touching, it's hard to see, but it's touching that metal piece, okay? So that way you don't have your hand up too high, don't have it back too far. So middle on the metal, okay? Then my thumb is going to go on the bow, just like it went on the pencil. It does not go into this little, and I can't even fit it, but some kids can, into this little crack. That's not where it goes. It goes right up against the stick. Remember, you did it on a pencil, and a pencil doesn't have that little crevice, so you don't need to put your thumb in there. So again, hanging your hands over, middle on the metal, thumb goes up against the stick. See how nice and curved my thumb is, okay? Then for cello and bass, that's basically it. You're going to give your hand a little tilt to the left. But for violins and violas, you're going to put your pinky up on top of the stick, okay? And this, and violins and violas, sometimes you need to give that pointer finger a little bit extra space between your middle finger. Good. This is a beautiful bow hold, okay? It's very, very tempting to just want to hold it like this. I know it is. But if you hold it like this, it's actually going to make it almost impossible to play straight bows and have a beautiful tone later. So again, I would spend 5 or 10 minutes every day that you're practicing, just practicing holding your bow. Middle on the metal, that nice curved thumb, and a little tilt, and pinky if you're a violin and a viola. Okay, that's a beautiful bow hold. All right, a few safety things that we talked about in instrument care with our bow. First of all, we want to avoid touching the horsehair on our bow. You can see that as I'm holding it, I'm holding it on the stick, and I'm not touching the hair. If you touch the hair too much, it actually will get all of the oils from your hands into the hair, and then it will not play properly. And at that point, there's not a whole lot we can do about it. So please avoid touching the hair. You'll also see that when I take my bow out of the case, it's in a relaxed, loosened position. You can see how close the hair and the stick are. So you're going to use this screw down here and tighten your bow. You don't want to tighten it too much, and we said that the way to tell that your bow is not too tight is that it still has a little bit of a natural curve, kind of like a smile. If you tighten it too much, it starts to bow out like this, and we don't want frowny bows, we want smiling bows. For violins and violas, you know it's tight enough when it's about the width of a pencil in between. Cellos and basses, it's a little bit more, and that's just something that you get comfortable with and just start to know over time, and I will help you over these next couple lessons as we're tightening our bow. Very important to remember that when you're done playing, that you need to loosen it and bring it back to the loose position that it was in when it was in your case, when you took it out. If you do not loosen your bow in between times and keep it loose when you're not playing, eventually it won't tighten anymore. So, and I've had that happen with lots of students, and then we have to replace the bow, and it's a big expense, and so we don't want to deal with that if we don't have to. The other thing is that everyone should have some rosin in their case. I did run out, so there's a few students who I'm waiting on getting rosin to until my order comes in. But this is what creates the friction between the bow and the string. So every time you're going to play, you're just going to rub the hair up against the black part, the rosin part, maybe about 5 times. Don't do it too much, or when you play, you're going to have a big cloud of rosin dust. That's no fun. So again, the more you play, the more you will be able to tell if your bow is rosin enough, rosin too much, or not, doesn't have enough on it. Okay, so then we did a couple of exercises using our instrument and our bow. So always important that we make sure we have a beautiful bow hold before we do anything. And we said that when you play with your bow, it's going to be in the sweet spot. The sweet spot is in between the bridge right here and the fingerboard right here. So right in this area is where your bow is going to go. You don't want it over the fingerboard. It's actually harder to play up there, and it doesn't sound as good. And back here, you're in trouble. You can't change any notes back here, and it's very squeaky. So we're going to have our beautiful bow hold, place our bow in the sweet spot, and we did something called a rainbow, which means we're going across with our arms nice and slow and hitting every string with our bow hair. And that's showing us that our arm, my right arm, and you can see my elbows going up, it looks a little different on cello and bass. It looks more like this, okay? But your arm and your elbow have to be in different positions to play different strings. And so as you're doing that, you can stop on a string. I'm going to stop on D, and make sure that just the bow hair is only on the string D, and then do a nice full bow on the D string like this. Okay, if you start to see something like this, you see how my bow does not stay in the sweet spot. It means I'm moving. It's normally that I'm playing from my shoulder. I'm pulling my shoulder back instead of opening my elbow up. So you want to avoid that. But a nice straight bow with a beautiful bow hold. And you can do that on every string. So that's one of the biggest and most important parts of your homework this week, is being able to come back and say, I can do a beautiful straight bow, big full bow, on every single string without hitting the neighbor strings. Again, that is a really tough thing, and it might take a few weeks to have that down, but I want everyone to practice that this week and see if you can do it on every string. It is easier to do it on the end strings. The two middle strings are a little bit more of a challenge, but try to get those and see what you can do with it. And then the next thing that was the homework was to go back and do pages 6 and 7 in the lesson book again. That was the homework last week, and we did it pizzicato or plucking. This time I want you to do it with the bow. And by the way, I was really impressed. Almost everyone came back and had that stuff down perfect. So the good news is your left hand knows what to do. Your left hand knows where to, there's our bell for the period change. Your left hand knows where to put your fingers. Now we have to add the right hand in with the bow, and every time you would pluck a note, you're going to bow the note. So and making sure that you stay in the sweet spot and that your bow is on the correct string. One of the biggest mistakes is that you have your bow on the wrong string, and even though you're putting fingers down to change the note, it's not changing because you have your bow on the wrong string. So I think everything this week, unless you're a bass, was on the D string. So you're going to kind of hang out on the D string and practice playing there. So those are the basics of playing with your bow. We're going to keep practicing that this week and also do a couple of really exciting new things in this next lesson as well. So work hard on that, have your beautiful bow hold, practice those full bows, and we will see you at your next lesson.